before we get into our mainstream minute. So we ask the Creator to give us grace, and that we all would like to have an open mind and open heart to learn new information, and have the desire that we apply this information so that we can empower ourselves to improve our health. I ask that Creator give me the ability to be a vessel, removing my ego and my arrogance, so that I may be someone that can give you information that you can use, and also to be humble enough to learn, and humble enough to be able to do what it is that's best for those of you who need my help. So with that, let's get started. David, thank you for coming in. So the first thing that I want to talk about today, I want to get into some of this information about this vaping. So there's the article on CNN saying vaping epidemic has gone too far. Americans deserve better. Now, a lot of times when we read articles from, whether they be newspapers or online articles or, magazines, whatever the case may be, we always have to try to understand where the information is coming from and what is the perspective, because when people write articles, they don't write articles just for anything. They're writing articles because they usually have something that they're trying to get across, but they also sometimes are being edited by people who are more powerful and people that want a certain viewpoint to get across to the public. Daniel Lake and Joseph Muhammad, thank you for coming in. So that's the first thing that I want to say, is that, we always have to try to find out what is the perspective that this person is coming from, because, this person is writing this article, and then if you see right here, it says, earlier this month, after a 6th person died of lung disease related to vaping, and that number is now up to 12. And then it goes on to talk about the Trump administration, blah, blah, blah. Well, all of us would agree that 6 to 12 people dying is not something for a whole nation to be concerned about. So why are these people talking about something related to 6 to 12 deaths, and considering that this is something that the whole country, and that there needs to be different policies and all these type of things? Well, that is a lot of, like I talked before, there's a lot of racism in a lot of these things. Because I don't know if you all have paid attention to the lash back that the comedian, what's my man's name that did? He did a comedy act. It was called Sticks and Stones. Dave Chappelle, right? Shirley X, thank you for coming in. Dave Chappelle did a stand-up comedy, and the reality is that a lot of his comedy was really discussing in a comedic way the issues of racism in America. And most of us as black people, we know very intimately the crack epidemic and how it affected our community. And now that there is a pill problem in a lot of rural and poor white, and it's not only poor white, but it's extremely hitting the rural and the poor whites hard, but it's also affecting a lot of the middle class as well as the rich white communities. They are on these opioid medications. There are a lot of overdoses. There are a lot of people addicted. There are a lot of people that are doing like the type of things that we as black people remember some of our cousins and our homies from down the street, and sometimes people that we didn't know, but the type of things that they were doing for crack back in the 80s and the early 90s are things that some of these people are doing for opioids now. And it is very similar with this type of a article, because the tobacco companies have greatly increased their marketing, not in America, but it's to other countries around the world, mostly darker skinned people. And so cigarettes are still the biggest killer of people when it comes to any type of lung problem, by far. But yet the vaping problem is bigger in poor whites and more the white population in this country now. So that's why I wanted to point out this article today, because this article is very directed towards changing laws and getting all of this help and all these different things so that they can stop people from vaping, just like they want a lot of legislation and a lot of changes to stop this opioid crisis. But nobody is charging up these tobacco companies for being satisfied with what they are making from a monetary perspective in the United States. They're pretty satisfied. This is all on autopilot over here because there's so many people that are smoking, they're going to influence other people to smoke. And this market, they pretty much think is saturated as far as marketing. That's why you don't see a lot of smoking commercials. But when you go to other countries, there are a lot of smoking commercials because they're still trying to get the indigenous and darker skinned people around the world to increase their smoking while they're trying to decrease the type of smoking and the type of these electronic cigarettes and this vaping that tends to affect more of non-black and non-brown skinned people. So I just wanted to point that out. Again, a lot of people I think get frustrated with me when I deal with race when it comes to medicine, but it's just to make sure that we are all clear and getting the right type of information and putting the information in the right format when we bring it into ourselves, because racism is not missing in medicine like it's not missing in any other aspect of this world. And I would contend to say that everybody needs to take in consideration that the biggest murdering system in America isn't police killing black people. The biggest murdering system in America is the healthcare system that has depleted our ability to think positive of our healing capability. And so we're running after doctors that have care or don't care, writing prescriptions, taking pills, and dying with the same diseases that you started taking the pill for in the first place. So I don't think that people are just dying. I think people are being murdered in this system because it's mostly about lies. So that's the reason why I had to start today with that, because I want us to really be clear on what it is that we're reading when we're out there in cyberspace trying to get some information about health, okay? Yeah, Donita, you were trying to give me some of those answers while I was pausing. Thank you, Joseph. Maria Muhammad, thank you for coming in. Kiana DeBose, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so let's get to the program for today. We're going to talk about the brain, and really, I want to kind of talk about brain / the mind, because there's a difference between the two, and there is always new things to learn about this wonderful organ and its ability, right? So just real quickly, I just want to go through a couple things. We don't want to get this too involved, but the big section of the brain is called the cerebrum, right? Kiana DeBose said big pharma and healthcare industry for sure. Yes, for sure. So this is the cerebrum, the kind of yellow brownish part up there, right? This is the cerebellum. So this part here is mostly about gathering information, the majority of it, all right? Now we do have our vocal centers, and we have our sight centers, and we have our emotional centers and all those type of things in the brain, but the main aspect of the cerebellum is gathering information. So all of the senses, our sight, our smell, our touch, our feel, did I say sight? Taste, yes. And then, I believe that we have more than just 5 senses. I believe we have 7 senses. That's a conversation for another time. But, some of you as people, you get around somebody and you have this sense that something ain't right with them, or you have a sense that something is going on and you need to get away from there. That is a sense. And it's a very beautiful sense if we learn to pay attention to it. But that is not the point for today. The point is just that that's the majority of what this part of the brain is about, gathering information. So when somebody's trying to teach you something, if somebody's trying to teach you something, they're writing something down and you're visualizing it, or you're hearing it through your ear. And so that's where the majority of that information is going. And then if you look at this green section right here, this is called the corpus callosum, and it is the section of the brain where one side connects to the other side. So, we've all heard about the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, and which one does this and which one does that. I don't really want to get into a whole lot of that today, because that's really not the point that I'm trying to make today. What I'm really trying to do is just point out some things that are very, very key to how we gather information, and then we're going to talk about the mind, because the brain is a physical structure where we get a lot of information, we process a lot of information, and we can use the brain to produce things. But when you produce something, that is the mind of that person that you're seeing, right? Because it's not the physical brain. So if I start using my hands and I get ready to start producing something, you are now looking at what my mind produced, because now we're talking something that's outside of the brain, right? You can't point to what the thought process is. You can't point to what the mind is, but yet it still has an association with this organ. Okay, and then quickly, we call this the primitive part of the brain. This is where you have all of the, like the innate aspects, or like our animal instincts, or our hunger and our anger and our emotions and all those type of things are connected in this area here. So the brain is a very intricate, there are trillions of cells in this, and all of these different aspects of the brain, although we have a general idea of what each of them do, there are also many things that these areas of the brain do that we have no idea. And so this area in here, what we call the primitive or the midbrain, that has the processing of breathing, heartbeat, some of the basic instincts of living. So that's why sometimes a person can have like a major stroke or have a major brain injury, and all of this up here can be injured and not working correctly, but the person will still keep breathing. The person will still have their heart beating because of this section right here. Okay. Brother Lawrence, thank you for coming in. Kiana says, for sure, sense of discernment, intuition. And Donita Lake says the amygdala, fight, flight, freeze part of the brain. Yes. Yeah, I honestly don't really want to get into all those specifics you all today, because the real big point of today is more of this system right here, the limbic system. I just want to let you all see this and read something real quick. It says, the limbic system is involved in instinctive behaviors, deep-seated emotions, and basic impulses such as sex, anger, pleasure, and general survival. It also forms a link between centers of higher consciousness in the cerebral cortex and the brainstem, which regulates the body system. So what does that statement mean about linking the centers of higher consciousness in the cerebral cortex and the brainstem, which regulates the body system? So I want to make sure that we understand this statement, right? So centers of higher consciousness, that is occurring in what we just finished looking at, right? These are the centers for the higher consciousness. That is this aspect. Now, how do we know that? Because when we do what we call blood-associated MRIs, Alan Bowden, thank you for coming in. When we hook up people to these brain electrodes, and we start looking at when a person is dealing with like yoga, or they're dealing with meditation, or they're dealing with like deep thought, or they're trying to figure out things, this is the part of the brain that really starts to light up. These aspects down here actually do what the body does when we get really physically active, right? So if we're going to run out and do like a 100-yard dash, or we're going to play basketball or some other type of sport, the body starts to push a lot of blood flow to the muscles that are being used, but the organs of the body get a decreased amount of blood flow than normal. And the brain is the same way. When the brain is really trying to function on a real high level, this right here lights up. A lot of blood flow, a lot of electrical activity, and these areas down here start to diminish. I hope some of you are already starting to figure out what I am trying to say, because what I'm really getting to is why we make decisions that we know aren't good for us, right? Now, as a physician, of course, that's my aim and my purpose, right, is to give people the proper type of information. But of course, when I got to being more effective, it is because I help empower people to think, process, and do for themselves, right? So this really is just a kind of a look of the different aspects of the limbic system. And if we look over here, what we just finished looking at is this part out here is the thinking, the processing, right? And this part in here is more the primitive brain, more of the animal instincts, more of the like the innate things about us. So you can see that a lot of our emotional centers, which is the limbic system, is a lot of emotion, right? It says up here what? Instinctive behaviors and deep-seated emotions. So this system has a tendency, if we look at it again, just to put this in context, right? This section at the top here is the thinking, processing, staying in control, right? And this part down here where you see most of the emotional centers is more of the like the animalistic aspect, because we have to admit that when they do studies on animals, animals do have emotions. They may not necessarily be as in tune as ours are, but they do have emotions. Animals can get angry. Animals can get sad. Animals, if you've ever watched a nature channel and you see animals use their children, they have a distinct action that they go through that shows that they can be sad, that shows that they can have regret. You know, my child died. So anyway, point is that our emotions are more of an aspect of our daily mental capacity that can be controlled. But you know, those of you who have listened to me and have heard quite a few of my programs, I'm always talking about marketing. And marketing majors spend a lot of time in psychology. And so they are aiming their marketing ideas, their commercials, their, you know, the things that are trying to grab your attention, whether you're on the internet, magazine, television, driving down the highway and you see the billboards, whatever those things are, they're really trying to attack your emotions. They're trying to tap into your emotions. Why? Because most of us are living a subconscious life, so the emotional aspect of us is what leads. That's why you can have, you know, we started off the discussion about smoking. That's why in 2019, with all the information we have in public about smoking and how bad it is, but yet you can go every day, just about every building that any of us go in and out of, you'll have people standing in front of that building smoking a cigarette. I don't know anybody that could make a statement and say, I'm smoking this cigarette because I know it's going to make me healthier. There's not a person that I've ever heard that doesn't know that cigarettes are going to lead to something bad, but yet you continue to smoke. That is, I mean to say sickness. That is a mental health problem, what it really is. But I'm not pointing at a person who smokes and trying to say that they have a mental health problem like the rest of us don't. I mean, if some of us, and I'll speak for myself, in my former marriage, I was cheating on my wife. That's a mental health problem. Instead of taking the time to learn how to talk to my children and help, you know, mold my children's mind by thinking through things and processing, I used to raise my voice. I never beat my children, but you know, I could have come up with a better way. To me, that's a mental health problem. When I was coming up in my household, my father was a very physically abusive disciplinarian. I believe he had a mental health problem. So I think we have to redefine mental health, because we're seeing it in the social media and on television and news outlets all over the world. But all of us need to improve our mental health. All of us need to improve our ability to be mentally healthy. In a society like we live in, with so many aspects, and I shouldn't say so many, all of the aspects of it being from white supremacy mentality, then if your skin is not white, you automatically suffer. You have to have some mental health problems. And, you know, when you start getting into things like bipolar and schizophrenia and depression, all these type of things, well, these are people that just have a little further or a little more apparent issues that they may not necessarily be able to control, like some of us can mask some of our issues. So I hope I'm making sense, and the reason why I'm getting to that is going to be very apparent in just a minute. Let me see if there are any. Yeah, the brain is beautiful, Kiana, I agree. Donnie Lake says hippocampus to affect your emotions. You guys are you're really speaking on tonight. Well, thank you. Addiction is a medical biological disease. Um, I don't know if I would. Yes, let me take that back. I agree with you, Donnie, like that addiction is a medical biological disease, but I don't think that is the initiation of it. Um, you know, in my studies, I have come to a conclusion that anything man-made can't be something that is genetically causing our issues. So, for instance, cigarettes are something that men or women produced for us to smoke. Alcohol is something that humans had to go and decide to put through this process and make this thing that will make us high. So those things can't be genetic. But what can happen is that I can get influenced to do this. For instance, if I have an alcoholic problem and I have children, my training of my children and the way that I handle my problems, the way that I handle my issues, the way I deal with problems in my life is going to be what they are going to be groomed into from a mental perspective of watching and that training that happens early in life. And so they fall into the same type of traps that I fall into. And that's not genetic. That just means you're trained incorrectly. Now, if I have a personality problem, or if I have a personality type that allows me to give in to those things easier than another personality type, now that can be genetic. You can pass a behavioral issue into a child or a personality issue into a child. But that being genetic, no. So I do agree that addiction is a medical biological disease, but at the end of the day, I think it starts with a mental or a mind problem, which is exactly what we're talking about today. An influence that happens that usually is able to set itself in us because of our emotions, something tied to an emotion. And so let me get to specifically what I'm talking about when I say that. Okay? So here it is that we're looking at just another picture of the brain. And all of these different colors that you see here just represent different, you see how it says vision, motor, memory, audition, body sensation, emotion, gustation, olfaction. So all of these different aspects of the colors that they put here represent all these different possibility of things that can happen. Now, what is happening as a child and even as a young adult and even as adults, what is happening when we have certain situation happen to us? Like, for instance, I'm going to talk about a real situation that happened to me when I think I was about either 12 or 13 years old. First of all, I was too young. I didn't have a license, but I was driving in my dad's truck with him. He was teaching me how to drive. So, I'm feeling fly. I'm feeling like I'm, the man because I'm rolling down the street and, I didn't pass by a couple of my friends. They see me driving like, damn, Keely driving. But I got to this street where at the end of the street, there was a little like inclination up to the stop sign. And I was having a hard time keeping the truck from, rolling back. And so my father's hollering at me. I saw a girl that I liked pass by on the opposite side, her mama driving. So she looking at me like, I don't know what she was thinking, but I know what I was thinking she was thinking. My dad grabbed me by my arm and he's hollering at me. So I'm like embarrassed. I'm mad. I'm feeling crazy as hell. And so think about that. I had some stuff he was saying to me. He grabbed me by my arm. I'm having memories because I'm looking at all these things. So I'm thinking about this. I'm trying to move the car and I'm seeing all these things. So imagine the different things that are coming in my mind. Imagine that these things are now associated with that anger. They're associated with some of the things I saw. They're associated with my dad's voice. They're associated with my dad's grabbing of my arm. See, this is the type of activity that can happen to us that makes emotions highly conflictual and highly difficult to sort. Because now, maybe in my future, anytime somebody grabs me on my arm like that, I'm tripping. I'm automatically mad. I'm automatically functioning out of some type of bad emotion because of what happened with my dad when I was 13. But now I'm 27. Somebody grabbed me on my arm and I go off. And I don't even know that it's associated with something that happened long before. I hope I'm making sense. And so, just using my own personal situation, if I'm like 30 now, I'm driving down the highway and there's some poster on the side of the road that reminds me of that situation, and now it's associated with a hamburger, or associated with a drink, or associated with this car, or whatever the case may be. Now, in that situation, it might turn me off from that car. So I might say in my mind, I don't even like that company. I haven't even done any research. I haven't known anything, really about that company. But because of my historical situation, now I'll automatically have a negative association with that car. I hope I'm making sense. And so this is why I'm talking about this today, because people have a tendency to make decisions on what they do, right? Because some of us have literally said, I know I need to do such and such to improve my health, or I know I need to stop doing such and such. But then we wind up continuing to do it. Why do we keep doing that? Because something and somebody has tied into our emotions. And rather than, going back to this picture, rather than the part of the brain that is supposed to be in control, which is the cerebrum, we're allowing the emotional and the more animalistic aspects be in control, because somebody is tying into our limbic system, tying into our primitive section. I hope that's making sense to y'all. So this colored section, which right here is just bigger, this section is in control in most of us. Why? Because we're living a subconscious life. What do I mean by that? We get up every day, get out the bed on the same side of the bed. We always brush our teeth first, then we wash our face, then we get in the shower. Then we get dressed, and then we put on the television, put on the radio, then we drink our coffee, eat a food, whatever we're going to do, get in the car, same radio station, drive the same way every day, sit at the same desk, eat at the same place, talk to the same people, same radio station at work, over and over and over again. Life is all the same. So I'm having this conversation today, y'all, because I think that all of us are going to have to try to tap into that aspect of our life that the limbic system is controlling and keeping us in a subconscious animalistic phase. And that's what marketing is tying into. Marketing is tying into your animalistic, emotional ties to the primitive you. And what you have is the ability to overtake that with the new you, because every time you learn something new, every time you get a different experience, every time you get a good experience, a better experience, a different or a new experience, you're becoming a what? A different you, a newer you. And that's what we have to start doing. You know what I'm saying? Tomorrow, if you get up first and brush your teeth every day, tomorrow get up and take your shower first. If you get up every day and you take your shower first, tomorrow brush your teeth before you take your shower. If you go to work Monday through Friday and you drive the same way, decide that every day you're going to make something about your trip just a little different. If it's the first turn, go left instead of right, and then get back on your regular course. Or take your normal course, and then when you get close to work, do something a little different. Climb the steps instead of taking the elevator. Go for a walk during lunch instead of eating on Monday and Tuesday. These are not suggestions that you all have to take. These are just some things that I'm putting out there because I think that we have to start combating this run-of-the-mill rut type of life that a lot of us are living, because we want to get ourselves into what? Consciously making decisions every second, every minute of the day. I'm not going to drive to work and then get to work and say, wow, I don't even know how I got here. Man, I do it so much, I must just... No, make a turn so that you have to think your way through what you're doing, and that way we start processing and planning to be in control of every part of our day. So y'all let me know if that made sense, because the real reason why I did that is because today I wanted to talk about this beautiful book right here called what? How to Eat to Live. Those of you who know my story know that I am a traditionally trained doctor who read this book after 7 years of practice, and it completely revolutionized what I did. Now, why am I talking about this today? Because coming up on October 15th, which is on a Tuesday, we are going to have the Ultimate Wellness Group Testimonial Tuesday, which means that I am going to have many of the people that I have worked with, and they're going to be telling their testimonies. So I need all of you, please, let people know. Let your friends, let people who are sick, let people know that they need to tune in on Tuesday. And listen to these testimonies, because it's not about me. It's about what I think we have to start thinking about this man and the information that he gave us, and why it is such an important reality for us to start thinking about how we're going to take care of our health. Now, the first thing I want to say is that this book was printed, what, in 1967. Why am I saying that? Because I'm about to show you some evidence in today's science that is bearing witness to this book. So this man used to write articles in black newspapers all over the country in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s. And then he compiled it into this book, book one, as I just showed you, in 1967. And then he compiled book two, How to Eat to Live, book two, and I think it was 1972, he compiled the second one. But these articles were written in the 40s, 50s, and the 60s. And so what we're going to look at today is the evidence that shows that there's something great about a man that wrote about these things 60, 70, 80 years ago. And now we're just getting information within the last probably 5 to 10 years that are supporting everything he said. Not validating it, because he needed no validation, just supporting that what he's been saying all these years makes sense. So one of the things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in How to Eat to Live on a regular basis is that we should fast 3 days out of each month. Now here's a statement. How a 3-day fast resets your immune system. The benefits of fasting are many and various. Fasting supports good health by promoting a healthy body weight, encouraging normal cognitive function. Well, we just finished talking about that brain, right? And even facilitating detoxification. Research has also shown that fasting may help reset the immune system. What are they talking about when they say that it's going to reset the immune system? Well, we got to go into a little science today. This is just a little depiction of what produces our blood cells. So up here at the top, T lymphocytes, that's your white blood cells. B lymphocytes, that's what produces your immune cells that go all over the body. Erythrocyte would be your red blood cell. Megakaryocyte produces your platelets, that keeps you from bleeding when you cut yourself or something like that. That's what causes the body to slow the blood down and start causing there to be a clot. And then basophil, eosinophil, neutrophil, monocytes, and all of these are your white blood cells that the lymphocytes help produce and mature and get out. And then you have osteoblasts, which is what goes around the body and takes out old bone and helps produce new bone. Now, all of these cells, I'm not interested in you knowing all of that. I really wanted to just get to that. These are your stem cells. So our blood is renewed how? By the body producing stem cells, and then all of these progress to the cells that rotate around in our blood. So here it is that when you fast, if they're telling us that a 3-day fast may help reset the immune system are all those cells I just finished showing you. So the immune system means that it's being completely reproduced by stem cells. So I know a lot of you are hearing some of these people out here trying to sell stem cells that come out of babies and all that kind of stuff. You don't need that. If you put your brain back in control and practice being in control, eating the right type of foods, and then fasting once a month for 3 days, you will renew all of your blood cells. Now, if you can renew all of your blood cells, do you believe you can repair your liver, repair your brain, repair your heart, repair your muscles, repair your pancreas, and solve medical problems? Well, that's why I want you all to tune in on October 15th, because we're going to look at what this possibility is. Now, next subject, intermittent fasting. You get a lot of information around the internet, and people are using the word intermittent fasting to mean a lot of different things. But the major thing that intermittent fasting means is going longer periods of time in between meals, which this man has told us. Okay, here's a statement that he makes on page 88 in book 1. When we get used to eating one meal a day or every 24 hours, we start eating once every 2 days, which will give to you and me better results than eating one meal a day. Even eating one meal a day and eating the right kind of food and having a pure drink will bring us health and prolonged life of which we would not even dream. You will not be sick if you eat correctly. You will not be sick if you eat correctly. Now, automatically, I think that every single one of us have to kind of pause there and understand that I don't know anybody that gives a guarantee like that. But then the other thing that I think that we all have to think about is how many of us come from families that sickness runs in the family. We all have that in our families, right? And then you may have one person or two people in your family that started eating different. They became vegetarians, whatever the case may be, and they're the only ones that don't have disease. So we have a lot of things that are supporting that information is true, that what you eat and what you do has a lot to do with whether you get sick. Now, intermittent fasting, there's been a lot of studies all over the world about intermittent fasting. And I actually met a man a few years ago. He was in the airport. We were talking, and he went to this place on the East Coast. I believe it was somewhere in Minnesota, where he and a bunch of people went to some place, and they were like not eating for like 3 months. So they would do like tea, and they would sometimes do juicing and stuff like that, but they weren't eating. And this man said that when he left to go there, I think he was in his 50s at that time, when he went there just for 3 months and did their program and went back home to his family, they said it looked like he had digressed 30 years. So we're really talking about, again, somebody that was writing way back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and the 70s. I'm sorry. He published it in the 60s and 70s. He was writing the articles in the 40s, 50s, and the 60s. Okay? Here's another one. Eating less, right? You know, I've spoken before about the aspects of this country that started teaching us to eat more food. It was the people that were coming from other parts of the world, like the Irish and some of the other Europeans, that were promoting eating meat and eating large meals with a lot of calories would help you, give you strength. And that's the reason right now today, a lot of athletes, we eat these large meals before they go play sports and all these type of things. But the truth is, that statement right there, you eat less, you live longer. Cutting back on food can help repair the body, says a new study. A very low-calorie diet could be the key to long and healthy life, according to new research. Eating less can boost healthier aging by protecting the body cells from harmful deterioration and the risk of cancer. So I just finished reading out of How to Eat to Live, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us that if we eat one meal a day, we won't be sick if we fast 3 times. He makes the statement that if we eat one meal a day and we fast 3 times a month, we won't have enough germ in our body at the end of the year to cause us to be sick for 1 hour. He said if you eat one meal every other day, you might get sick every 3 to 4 years. He said if you eat one meal every 3 days, you will never be sick. So there's another statement that he makes in book 2. I just wasn't able to find it before we started this program, but I have it in my phone, so I'm going to mention it before we get off the program. But he literally says, the less food you eat, the longer you will live. And the reason why I'm going through these articles and the stuff that's on the internet is because, of course, we can always go and look up stuff, and you find one article that says something, and you can find another article that says the exact opposite. But this information right here, across the board, people are agreeing that this whole 3 meal a day thing and eating every day and eating a lot of food is definitely detrimental to health. Okay? And so I'm just going through this again because I want to lay a base for what it is that we're going to be talking about next week. So let's go to the next one. Nuts. There are a lot of people out here promoting nuts. There are a lot of medical people and medical industries that are promoting nuts. And one of the things that we really have to understand, again, you know, those of you who watch me on a regular basis, you know, on some of these programs, I've actually gone through some of these medical articles, and we talked about being able to decipher medical studies. That is a science within itself. Epidemiology is something. Epidemiology is something that sometimes people go years to understand how to decipher studies and how to put studies together. So a lot of times it's not necessarily an easy task to go through and understand what these programs are trying to conclude. I did my own research on prostate cancer when I was a resident before I, came out and started my own practice. And the information out there on prostate cancer is all lies, because you can never have a study that is so poorly done, and every study they do on black people is poorly done, hands down. Any type of problems that supposedly happen in black people, the studies never get as much money as the studies with diseases that affect white people. The studies never are done correctly, but yet they conclude things as if your study could have a conclusion. When you don't have the right type of study, what you should conclude is our study is flawed and we can't say anything honestly about this study because it wasn't done right. That's what they should say. But these people lie, and they come and they say these conclusions like prostate cancer is more common in black men. Prostate cancer is worse in black men. Starts at an early age. They've never done a study to prove that. All lies. Point that I'm getting to is that many times when a study comes out and says that meat is good for such and such, it was the meat industry that put money behind that. What else do you think they're going to conclude? When you have studies that say nuts are good for your heart, nut companies put the money up behind. What else would they conclude? If a pharmaceutical company puts money up for a certain disease process because they have a pill that's going to treat that process, what do you think the study is going to conclude? See, this is something that we really have to take in consideration, because when we're talking about nuts, I've already told you all how you can do your own study, but at the end of the day, there are many people that will say nuts are good for you, and there are many stories on the internet, they're on YouTube, all kinds of people talking about soaking nuts and all that kind of stuff. But regardless, these things right here, phytates and tannins, which I've talked about before, you all can check out some of my other programs. They impair digestion. They keep you from absorbing any nutrients. And so at the end of the day, when you eat nuts, you literally are doing damage to your GI system because they're hard and they scratch up everything. And a lot of the things that we're getting out of them are damaging to the GI system and also the body in general. Okay? Another thing that we see a lot in the news are green leafy vegetables. You should eat your kale and eat your greens. Well, let's let's look at what this man said. Virtually all vegetables, this is page 4, book 1. Virtually all vegetables are good to eat except collard greens and turnip salad. So right off the top, he's telling you that that greens aren't good, because that's mostly what black people eat right there, collard and turnip greens. And then down here, what does he say? Eat some spinach, but do not become a habitual eater of spinach eater. And then what right there? Do not eat the vegetable called kale. Y'all want the total story, you're going to have to buy that book and read it yourself. I'm just trying to give a few highlights, okay? So you admit you have a digestive problem. You know it is caused by excessive leafy greens. But you refuse to take your energy from animal products or starchy vegetable oil or lower intake of greens. Now, so this article was really more about people that want to get their vegetables and certain nutrients. And unfortunately, y'all, there's a lot of stuff on, again, just like the nuts, there's a lot of stuff on the internet where one story will tell you the leafy greens are good, and another story will tell you the leafy greens are bad. But again, just like the nuts, you can eat your favorite nut, look in your stool over the next couple of days, you'll see the nuts come out the same way you swallow them. Same thing with leafy greens. If you eat leafy greens, when you look in the stool, you'll see a lot of green stuff, which means that your body can't process it, because you don't have that problem with broccoli, you don't have that problem with green beans, you don't have that problem with asparagus. So there's a distinct difference that your body can tell you when you are not doing the right thing, okay? And then just for, where is that? I had a article on, maybe it's down here. I had an article on spinach where the people were saying the same thing, that you shouldn't be eating a lot of spinach. But anyway, I don't remember where it is. But that article was basically saying the same thing that How to Eat to Live says, and that is you should not eat a lot of spinach. If you eat a little bit of spinach, the body is not overwhelmed and you're able to get some of the nutrients, but when you start eating too much spinach, it does the same thing to you that kale, collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, all of those greens that black people love to eat. We prove that we cannot digest them. Okay, I guess I must be pretty clear, because ain't nobody asking any questions. So y'all let me know. Another thing, the truth about soy foods, right? Looking at top section, it says soy may cause health problems because of the anti-nutrients. So the same anti-nutrients that we talked about in nuts and in greens are in soy. It talks here about enzymes that you need to digest protein, but hemagglutinin, which causes your blood cells to clump together, that's in soy, and then goitrogens, which can cause problems with your thyroid function. But all of those are major problems with soy. But maybe as big as all of those, or maybe worse, is the phytoestrogens that actually cause many hormonal problems in women and in men. But this is one of the things that really can cause feminization in men and can cause what we call hirsutism in women, which is a woman that gets hair on her chin and hair on her chest and starts having problems with her ovaries and all those type of things. So there are definitely many things that this man said in his book that we have so much evidence that he knew what he was talking about way before they knew what they were talking about. So let me just read something real quick. I wanted to, oh, this one. So I know you all, those of you who continue to come back and support me, as I appreciate. What's up, my bro? It's my little man right here. I have a friend, and really not a friend, I should say a classmate that I went to medical school with, who recently posted that she had a hip surgery. And so I just wanted to read this statement because I think it makes a lot of sense. Eat a single meal a day, no matter what anyone says. If your doctor says that you should eat more than one meal a day, ignore him with a smile and eat only once a day. If he tells you eat 3 meals a day, tell him that his length of life is about the same as his patient's, and tell the doctor to try eating 1 meal a day. So again, this is not to belittle. This is not to make light of anybody, and it's definitely not to throw any shade to the young lady that I went to medical school with. I'm just giving you some food for thought in that if your health is important, right? I always talk about a healing journey or a healing maintenance, right? So if you have something in your body that needs to be fixed, you need to be on a healing journey. But if you just want to take care of your body and make sure that you continue to take care of it well so that you can live long and healthy, then you want to be on a health maintenance, right? Waliya Muhammad says, if one eats every other day, are they required to do the 3 days fast? That's actually a great question. I don't have an answer for that because he doesn't state that in there. But I'll be honest with you, for the last 4 years, I have been practicing 1 meal every other day. Of course, I say practicing because I'm still learning how to do it well. I do it well sometimes and then I fall off because of those same problems we discussed. My emotional brain part of me is in control of me sometimes. Fighting and getting better at winning that war. But I do a 3-day fast every month along with my 1 meal every other day. I would contend that we don't need to, because if you're eating 1 meal every other day at the end of the month, that's 15 days of fasting. So that's pretty good. But the one thing that I will say is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad does mention in How to Eat to Live that if you want to fast for spiritual reasons, that you should fast at least 3 days. So 1 meal every other day, of course, he talks about the health benefits of that. But the reason why I fast for 3 days every month, and then sometimes I go a little longer, is to help me with my spiritual aspect as well. So let me know if I answered your question, Walia, please. Raphael and Larisha, thank you for coming in. Excuse me. You said, Soldier, everyone is on that sea moss diet. Is this leafy greens or something altogether different? Yeah, well, I would say it's different because sea moss is not necessarily, I wouldn't put it in the same classification as, as the leafy greens like the kale, like the spinach, like the collard, mustard, and turnip greens. But sea moss is more like an herbal type thing. So when you look at things that we consider food, and a lot of people consider foods, and then when you start looking at things that are considered herbs, there's different functionality in the way that those things introduce nutrients to our bodies. So my personal experience and study of herbs, and by the way, I am a master herbologist, so I'm not just speaking like a, on like some conjecture or something that I heard. I literally went to get my certification in herbs, and then of course did my own study and have been doing my own study for years. And so my conclusion is that How to Eat to Live is telling us how to survive at the highest level, the best level, most healthy level, and to produce longevity in us through food. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad never mentions taking any herbs. He never mentions taking any supplements. Matter of fact, he talks about the negativity of supplements. And he also only talks about eating food and then the things that we should do around food, which of course is fasting and taking long intervals in between eating, and that's how we're going to get our maximum health. Now, when we start looking at the reality of studies on soil that say we have less nutrients and this and that and this and that, my argument against all of those type of people are that if there's not enough nutrients to put the right nutrients in food, then how could you possibly believe that there are enough nutrients to put them in the herbs and these supplements? Because a supplement means that you go into nature and you get something and you process it and you put it in a foot pill or a liquid or something like that. There's no way possible that anybody could ever make this brother that y'all listening to believe that once man puts his hands on something that is better than the way God made it. That's not even possible. As soon as we start doing something to something that we get from nature, we start adulterating it. So let's not ever believe that. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm knocking herbs, because a lot of herbs do come from nature. A lot of herbs are good for us. But I don't believe that any herb can outdo a food, because God made food for us to eat. God made food as the sustenance to our body. Can herbs help? Yes. But it's no different than going into the gym and wanting to work out. If I want to go to the gym and I want to get my biceps bigger and my chest bigger, I can't go and let the spotter do all the work. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to push the weights, and the spotter might help me. He might help me with the way that I'm doing. He might help me with my technique. He might help me when it's a little bit heavy. He might help me when I get to those last couple of reps and I'm so tired because I'm working myself that he needs to give me a little help. That's what a herb does. The food is doing all the work. The body was made to heal, so the food in the body is doing all the work. An herb may be able to spot you. An herb may be able to assist you while you strengthen yourself. But please don't believe that these people that are on these diets are on these diets for anything other than because they are being influenced by people that are worried about money, right? Because if I'm a person who sells herbs, how do I stay in business? By making you continue to believe that you need herbs. But again, October 15th, please come back. It's going to be a pretty long show. It's probably going to be a couple hours at minimum, because I'm going to give a chance for these people to come and tell you their stories. And I don't want to, like crunch people and tell them what they can't say. I want them to tell their story. I want them to connect with you all. I want you to be able to ask them questions, ask me questions. October 15th, you all are going to hear some testimonies. Most of the people that are going to come and tell their testimonies, they did take some herbs. Sometimes in the beginning of programs, when I assess people, their nutritional value is so bad, their state of health is so bad, that while we're getting them on the right course, I do use herbs sometimes for the first 2 months, 3 months, sometimes 6 months. But the true healing, the true aspect of longevity comes through food and the other things that we've been talking about. So let me know if I answered your question about that sea moss, because sea moss is a green food, and a lot of these people are doing it and they're talking about the wonderful things they're getting. So I'm never going to invalidate people when they say they have something positive. But again, like I always say, there is a thing that we call the placebo effect. And if a person believes something strong enough with this mind up here, it is going to happen. And that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, when we were discussing the brain and how you can put yourself back in control. The placebo effect is another thing. Go on YouTube and listen to a couple of videos about the placebo effect. And that will teach you about the power of your mind. if you believe that you can heal, then you're going to start doing the type of things that help you go in that direction. Of course, that's where I believe that I can help you. Donita Lake says, what about green tea for weight loss? And Zambezi, thank you for coming in. Joseph Muhammad, thank you. Alan, I'm going to get to you in just a second. Let me answer this question. On green tea, I don't think green tea is bad. I think green tea, based on my studies, has some good nutrients. I think it is, I would say that it probably is not better or worse than coffee. They both serve a percentage of caffeine. I think if you get a good coffee bean, it does have more caffeine than green tea leaves, but both of them are nutritious in that they do give some nutrients when you steep them correctly and do them so that they're not destroyed. But for weight loss, no, I don't believe that any person should do anything for weight loss other than to evaluate what is the problem that caused you to gain weight and then start working to solve the problem. Like we just finished talking about, putting the mind on what it is that you need to do, believing that you can do it, and then putting the work in. Because there's so many tricks out here to help people lose weight. The problem is that if you don't understand why you gained it in the first place, then if you get to a point where you don't have access to the green tea, or you just get tired of doing green tea, then what's going to happen? You're going to gain the weight back? Not if you went through the processes of learning why you gained weight, what is causing you to keep the weight on you, and then what are we going to do to take your body in the opposite direction. So I always think that assessing a problem and then putting the work in to reverse that problem is always much more beneficial than using something like green tea for weight loss. So Donita, please let me know if I answered your question. Again, Joseph, thank you, sir. Out and about. If you're fasting more than one meal a day, then the 72-hour fast at the end of the month should not be necessary. Just do the math. Okay, yeah, I think what you're saying is in reference to the statement about fasting 3 days along with one meal every day, right? Awesome about your showing it. So yes, please come back and bring some people. Everybody, please. October 15th, 7 to 9. Many of the people I've been working with over the years are going to come and give their testimony. So yes, I would love for you all to come back, join us, and interact like you all always do in a wonderful way. Out and about on Doc, since raw milk is fine, then what about eggs? Yeah, I eat eggs on a regular basis. I think eggs are wonderful. Of course, you know, in How to Eat to Live, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us what we should do to get the best eggs. Of course, growing and producing our own food is always going to be the best. The reality is that right now I don't have the ability to do my own eggs because I don't have my farmland yet. I grow stuff in my backyard, but I don't necessarily have the ability to do eggs. So I get free-range eggs and soy-free eggs, because understand that if a chicken eats soy, and we know soy is horrible for us, that they find soy in the yolk and in the, well, not in another part, but in the yolk of the egg, they find soy remnants. So we got to make sure that you get the ones that are free range. Of course, we don't want the type that are clogged up in these cages and treated like crap and beaks cut off and all that kind of stuff, because we know they're mentally crazy, and that type of hormone is going to come through the meat into our bodies or in through the egg into our bodies. So please let me know if I answered your question. So Raphael X or Larisha says, can you comment on this? When I was eating once every other day, naturally there is a noticeable weight loss, even to looking unhealthy, sick. How can I minimize my eating and maintain a healthy look? Well, yes, anytime you begin following How to Eat to Live, there's going to be a period of time where, yes, you are going to lose weight. And he actually mentions that in the book. He says that probably in the first 2 weeks of you going from what you used to eat into one meal a day, you're going to lose weight. But then after a couple of weeks, you'll start to gain it back. Now, of course, we're talking about putting things in context, right? Because if you're 450 pounds and you start eating one meal a day and you used to eat 4 or 5 meals a day and they were all bad, you're going to lose weight and probably never gain it back. But what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was teaching us is that when you make adjustments to your body going from bad things to good, there's always an adjustment period. So yes, you're going to lose some weight first, and then your body's going to get back to its rhythm. It's going to get back to a normalcy with this new reality, and then it's going to find a way to balance itself. So it's the same way, and that's the same thing that happened to me when I went from 1 meal a day to 1 meal every other day. So what happened was, about 4 years ago, I felt like I was doing How to Eat to Live pretty good. And I wanted to make sure that I was not being, kind of crazy, arrogant, egotistical, whatever. And so I asked my wife, I said, what do you think? You are the one that prepares my meals. You're with me every day. We eat together. What do you think my success rate is from a percentage of how often I am sticking to 1 meal a day and doing it correctly? And she said, I think you do it about 85%. And that was the same number I had in my head. Now, at that time, I felt like I was carrying just a little too much weight. I thought I wanted to be a little more slim, a little more, the way I wanted to look, not from an unhealthy or a vain perspective. I wasn't trying to compare myself to somebody else and look like something. I just wanted to be a little more slim. I felt like I should be a little more slim for what I thought is like my ability to work out and my endurance and all those type of things. So that's when I decided I was going to go to 1 meal every other day. And when I did that, for about the first 3 weeks, I literally was like losing weight because, I've always been active, but what I did was when I went to 1 meal every other day, I didn't change my exercise routine. I actually increased it because, I had more time. I didn't have to worry about eating. So I always work out on the fast day and do something more like Reiki therapy, or I'll do yoga on the eating day. Because, of course, I always tell people that when you work out, you should always have the mind that I'm using the food that I ate yesterday to serve as my energy today. So that's why I would work out on my fasting days and then do something a little more light on the days that I wasn't eating. And I lost weight. And then after a while, I gained it back. But when I really got really good at, getting better and more efficient at eating 1 meal every day, then I started dropping that unneeded weight that I thought I needed to get rid of. And I got to a place where I thought I was at a pretty healthy thing. So if you think you're looking unhealthy and sick, I would say, and I do know that you all do a pretty good job of getting the right food. So I would say it may have just been an adjustment period, because I think we all go through that. And a lot of times when we look in the mirror and we say unhealthy and we say sick, it may just be that we're losing weight. And when you lose weight, sometimes healthily, you'll lose it in your face as well. And so we sometimes look in the mirror and think that that thinner look is a sicker look, and sometimes it's not. It's just something that we have to get used to. Let me know if I answered your question. Donita Lake says, yes, thank you, and thank you, ma'am. Akila, thank you for coming in. My cousin in Atlanta is raising chickens. That's what I'm talking about. Need to find out who that is so I can get some eggs from her. And I mean that seriously, because there are a few companies. I don't promote any particular companies, but I do give people information on a company that will actually put your eggs in the mail. And so, I haven't had to do that yet because there is a place here in Houston where I can get my eggs, and they are, of course, free range, and they don't have soy. The chickens don't eat soy grains. But if I could spend my money with a black business, I would change tomorrow. And the honest truth is that they're becoming harder and harder to find in Houston and in a lot of areas as I'm talking to people. So that definitely sounds like something we need to do with Keely is get her information out there and support her. Yeah, they have bees. Yeah, we used to have bees on our farm as well, but kind of lost them over the last few years. Been praying to Allah that there'll be a hive that flies into our garage or to our one of our trees so I can put them in a box. But yeah, tag me with her information, please, because if she has bees, maybe she has honey, and that's definitely the most healthy sweetener out there. And honey is mentioned in How to Eat to Live. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but honey is mentioned by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in How Do You Live. Raphael or Larisha say in Mexico they do not refrigerate their eggs. Yeah, I think I don't remember the science right off the top of my head, but I know there's a period of time once a chicken lays an egg. You know how a chicken lays the eggs and they sit on it, keep that warmth so that it will, what they call, fertilize. So, you know, when an egg is laid and we take those eggs away from that chicken, I don't think they can fertilize. So that probably is a very healthy thing. Oh, great, Keely. Yeah, I would love to have that information. So, y'all, that's the program for today. Again, I appreciate all of you for coming in. All of you that are regular supporters. I can never say thank you to you enough. You all are the reason that it's a success. You all are the reason that continue to give me the energy to find the time and make the time and continue to come back and give you news that you can use. So again, look, I'm still trying to boost my YouTube channel. So I need everybody, if you will, go and subscribe on my YouTube channel so I can continue to do these type of programs on YouTube as well. And the big day, of course, is coming October 15th. Please spread the news, tell your friends. When you come back, bring a few people with you, and let's get this information out about how beautiful this book is and how it helps people heal. We're going to have first line, right out of people's mouths, testimony, so that you all will know that if you know somebody that's sick, or if you're sick, or if there's something that you are dealing with, that what we're going to do on the 15th, I believe, is to boost people's confidence in what they can accomplish just by putting their mind on what it is that they want to do, and then maybe, you know, I or somebody can help you with the type of information and some of the activities that you need to do so that you can have the health that you need. I thank you all for coming in. Remember, work hard on your health, because in a society like we live in, good health is difficult in a society with this much madness going on. So